What's up guys, in this video we're going to look at the best entry-level cameras. We're going to look at cameras that are both affordable and easy to use, plus cameras that have a ton of horsepower that deliver amazing results. So sit back and relax and make sure to watch this video all the way through because it's jam-packed with information. So let's get into it. By the way, if you're new to the channel, we talk about anything and everything to do with camera gear, plus teaching you guys how to take better photos and videos. So if you're into that, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And all of the products that we talk about today, I'll make sure to leave a link down below in the description, so make sure to check that out. Let's get into the video. So the first camera on the list is actually the Canon T7. It is both the world's most affordable DSLR, but also the world's best-selling DSLR. Coincidence? This camera has a 24 megapixel sensor and has amazing Canon color science. Canon is known for having their photos and videos look gorgeous straight out of the camera with little to no editing needed. As for photos, this camera does 3 frames per second, which honestly is pretty slow, but it does have a 150 JPEG frame buffer, which means it can take 150 photos before this camera needs a break. That's pretty impressive, especially on an entry-level camera like this. As for video, it does full HD up to 30 frames per second. There is no slow-mo in this camera, but again, this really isn't much of a video camera to be honest. If you just want a casual camera that can do video, it definitely delivers, but this really isn't much of a video camera for a few reasons. It doesn't have very good video autofocus, and it also does not have any sort of stabilization in the video, which makes the video look a little bit more jittery than it has to. I would only get this camera if your main focus is photos and you're just casually shooting videos on the side, but it's not something special. But I do have to say one thing about the autofocus. When it comes to photo autofocus, it is phenomenal. It is fast and reliable and honestly, absolute beauty. And let's quickly touch upon the build quality and design of this camera because at this price point, most cameras are pretty bad when it comes to build quality. But thankfully, Canon is the exception. This camera is extremely well built and the ergonomics are fantastic. This is not a cheap camera that's gonna fall apart on you or break. And thankfully, because this camera is made by such a reputable brand like Canon, this camera is super well designed. All the buttons are exactly where they need to be, and the menu system and the button layout is super simple. Honestly, anybody can pick up this camera and get great results. The only thing that I don't like about this camera in terms of physical design is the fact that the screen on the back is fixed. So if you're trying to do a high angle shot, low angle shot, you're going to struggle. And on top of that, it doesn't have an input for an external microphone, so the audio is internal only, and internal audio is pretty bad. However, if you're somebody that wants an entry-level camera that's good at both photos and videos, this next camera might just be what you're looking for. Next up, we have the Nikon D3500. This camera has a 24 megapixel sensor, which is actually the same as the Canon T7. However, it does a few things very differently. When it comes to photos, this camera does 5 frames per second, which is slightly faster, but it also has a 14-bit RAW codec, which is the same as a high-end professional file format. If you don't know what that means, basically, if you want to edit your photos, if you want to do a ton of Photoshop, this camera is going to be able to handle that plus more. This camera would be great for somebody that has aspirations to work professionally, but this is maybe your first camera. As for video, this camera does full HD all the way up to 60 frames per second, so you do get 2 times slow motion. And as for the autofocus, it's really good in photo mode. It's fast and reliable and it's always sharp, but in video mode, it's just okay. It's not terrible, but it's nothing to write home about. The one thing that I should mention about this camera is that the Nikon color science, which means the colors that you get out of your camera, are pretty neutral. You will have to edit your colors to really make your photos pop. Unlike Canon cameras where the colors are amazing and everything looks good right out of the camera, Nikon cameras are really meant to be heavily edited. So this is really a camera that I would only recommend to somebody that's always going to be editing their photos. This is not a casual camera that you just pick up and you're like, cool, let me take some photos, everything looks good. You definitely want to be editing your photos. And last but not least, let's talk about build quality and design. Because this is a Nikon camera, it's well built and the ergonomics are great. They're not quite as simple as the Canon camera because Canon cameras are just easy, you can pick them up and they're really easy to use. Nikon cameras do have a little bit of a learning curve, but this camera is extremely well built. And if you're somebody that's a total tech nerd, really likes to get into the cameras, there's tons in there for you to play around with. However, when it comes to design, I have the same problems with this camera that I did with the Canon T7. The screen on the back is fixed, so if you're trying to shoot at high angle, low angles, or anything interesting, you're going to struggle to see your screen, and it does not have an input for an external microphone, which I guess is okay because it's an entry-level camera, but I wish it was there. And if you're watching this video, you're either an enthusiast or a content creator, but either way, you're very, very passionate about your camera. If you're interested in learning how to take pro-level photos and videos with your entry-level camera, be sure to check out the Camera Boost course down below. In this course, I teach you step by step how to get the most out of your camera, and this course is going to save you not only time, but also money, because the truth is you really don't need to have expensive gear to get pro-level results. I'm gonna teach you everything that I know, from how to shoot, how to light, how to edit. Basically, I'm gonna teach you exactly what you need to know to get the same results as me. So if I have your attention and this sounds like something you'd be into, be sure to check out the Camera Boost course in the link down below. With that being said, let's get back into the video. And I know you might be sitting there thinking like, hey, I want all the features that are missing in these cameras. I want better video autofocus. I want an input for an external mic. And in that case, my friend, I have the perfect camera, the Canon T8i. It has the same 24 megapixel sensor, which honestly is pretty standard in most cameras. When it comes to photos, this camera doesn't do anything particularly revolutionary. It shoots 7 frames per second with great autofocus, but where this camera really shines is actually video. This camera does full HD up to 60 frames per second, and it even has 4K. Sadly, that 4K has a pretty significant crop, but if you're somebody that really wants 4K in their camera, there you go. For me, what really sells this camera is the autofocus and design. This camera actually has Canon's dual pixel autofocus, so while most DSLRs have great autofocus when you look through the optical viewfinder, this camera has phenomenal autofocus even in live view mode. And because of that, you also get great autofocus in video mode. The dual pixel autofocus is amazing at tracking both faces and objects. It's almost set it and forget it. It is probably one of the best autofocusing systems in any camera, and it's really nice to see it in a DSLR. And when it comes to design, the thing that really sold me is the side articulating screen. It's easy to get high angle shot, low angle shots. You can even see yourself. For somebody that does self-portraits, it honestly is such a good thing to have on a camera. And the truth is, you really don't see it around that often. And before I forget, it also has an input for an external microphone. So it's easy to get crisp and clear, high quality audio with this camera. This camera would be perfect for an enthusiast, but if you're a content creator, a vlogger, or a YouTuber, you're going to have a great time with this camera. And because it's a DSLR, this camera also has phenomenal battery life because it uses the Canon LP6 batteries. You can easily go for more than half a day on a single charge. Well guys, that's pretty much it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Plus, if you guys want to learn how to get the most out of your camera, make sure to check out the link down below for the Camera Boost course, and I will see you guys in the next video.